Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar. Today we're sitting down to take a look at The Spirit of Competition, the episode in which love triangle bullshit happens. The episode I've been waiting for ever since Chris made that point, because this is where a lot of the love triangle stuff sort of comes to a head. For those who don't remember, this is the first part of the tournament, and they all decide, well, teenagers be teenagers, basically. Bolin likes Korra. Korra not so interested in Bolin. She kind of likes Mako, but Mako is with Asami. And then Korra expresses her feelings following a very interesting conversation with Pema, Tenjin's wife. But it turns out Mako's like, no, I'm with Asami, blah, blah, blah. And she's all like, well, I'm going to be snotty about it. And then she goes on a date with Bolin because, she's bad at stuff and, doesn't perceive how she's leading him on, even though she's very clearly like, oh yeah, it'll be fun, we can go have fun. She's not very clear with Bolin that she's not interested in him in that way, and it all plays out very badly for everyone involved. To the point where Korra
it's even more complicated. Like there's elements, you've listed a lot of love triangle bullshit. There's elements of love triangle bullshit you've not even covered there, which is that they genuinely seem to have a good time on their date and make each other laugh, but she still don't fancy him. She kisses Marco, who who admits he also does have feelings for her as well as the other woman. Like there's
Yep. And then there's, of course, the best part of the entire episode, and it's the main thing we're going to be talking about today, which is, Bolin, sad and drunk, sort of in the drunk on noodles, and Mako says, "I told you dating a teammate was a bad idea," and Bolin replies, "You're a bad idea." That's what I'm going to be focusing on mainly. The Bolin watching. The camera swinging around and Bolin being there with his flowers, having seen Korra and Mako kiss, is so genuinely heartbreaking. Even though the rest of this episode is mostly bullshit, that's a really good moment. It also plays out in that obviously it affects their balance as a team, so they play very badly until at the end when they decide not to, for reasons. So I'll be honest with you, Chris, up top. Not a huge fan of this episode.
They never play well. Korra wins it on a knockout blow on her own.
Yep. It's not great. It's a messy episode. There's stuff that doesn't really work about it. Lots of stuff that doesn't really work about it. It's one of the weaker ones of the first season, I think. But I'm very curious how you feel about how all this played out, considering specifically your feelings on the love triangle stuff in advance of watching this.
Yeah, this is the episode I've enjoyed the least. I don't know how much I'd say. I think it's one of those things where watching it, if you were watching it like in the context of watching the show and you were sort of, binging or whatever, I don't think I'd particularly find it too offensive. But I know that poking holes and analysing it, for 45 minutes, I'll probably find it more infuriating after that. Because when it starts, the bigger thing and the wider issue, and I know I have praised this show for the amount of things it is covering and the amount of balls it's juggling, and I feel like they've juggled those really well in the first 4 episodes. But I did have that sort of crushing sense of, oh no, right away here, where we have this big, epic, dramatic moment that ended the last episode, and it's literally, oh, well, I've been away from Tarek for a bit, and I've been doing this, and I'm like, oh, is that how we're going to juggle the multiple plots and things that Korra is doing? She's just stepped away from it, like literally just like, oh, we've stepped into this plot now, so this episode we're going to be dealing with this plot, so we've just written off the other stuff. And I don't necessarily mean we go back to, but how cool would it have been if maybe on the date, maybe, Bolin had said to Korra, What happened when you challenged him? And Korra goes shy and says she doesn't want to talk about it. And he says, well, if you ever need to, I'm here. And we have a genuine moment of friendship between them. Or he dismisses it because he's on a date. But when they decide to be friends, he says, look, you can, I'm your friend. You can talk to me about this. But that would involve maybe settling that storyline as opposed to leaving all the love triangle bullshit, hanging open. But they could have done some instead of literally. There are like 2 references to, oh, I've been practicing more, and no wonder she's not been in the papers much. I think the commentator says, and I'm like, oh, that's how we're literally. It's literally no. We're stepping into this plot now. We're stepping into some pro-bending plot, of which moves at a just incredible pace. This one episode could have been like 3 episodes, like across a load of stuff. Like, and I actually think some of it's quite inventive. The notion of, the 2, in a way, as much as I joke about the second one, the 2 ways that they manage to go right around, we have a dysfunctional team and need to show that they're dysfunctional, but we also need them to win. And the notion of, okay, well, one gets to a tie break, which means it's 1-on-1, and the member, Bolin takes that one because he is concentrating, he is on form, he's not been engrossed in any of the love triangle bullshit by this point, so he's able to do it and win. I thought that was very clever. I mean, it adds more complexities and rules to the game, but I thought that was very clever. And the notion of, well, she's very powerful and could knock him out on her own. Also very clever, very powerful, especially when we get that representation of how well-oiled the other team is. And, they've managed to get us in a position where this team has got to the final, yet we are still scared for them because they've not necessarily got there with the skills that it becomes apparent they're going to need to beat this other team. But we've got to the final within 1 episode, and it just feels like, they've got this big board and it says, Avatar stuff, pro-bending stuff, or Talik's squad stuff. And they're, right, what's today's episode going to be? It's going to be that. So let's talk about that. Like, it would really annoy me if the next episode we dealt with Avatar stuff or Talik stuff, because I'm like, but you've literally set up this jeopardizing final. But it wouldn't surprise me based on this episode and the way we've just written around last week and all of that stuff and not mentioned it if we did get that. Especially, and I'm not suggesting the episode starts with Korra still in Tenzin's arms crying. I'm simply saying that you have a character trying to get to know her and comfort her. Would it not make sense to find a way to weave a discussion about that into the plot for us to know that she's still thinking about it, that she's still scared about it? Maybe she's actually trying to distract herself with all this love triangle bullshit because she's trying to not think about this other thing that's just happened. So I think, that was my big takeaway from the episode was a lot of that stuff. And there's more specific details, but my overwhelming thought throughout and after was all of that.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt about it as well, which is like, this is like such a missed opportunity because, you literally have it on the table. Why aren't you helping Tarlok with his task force? Oh, well, I'm just, it was a lot. I'm taking a break. Like, I'm distracting myself from it. That's exactly it. If the plot of this episode, rather than so much of the love triangle stuff, if this had more been about Korra almost childishly, but understandably for someone of her age, trying to forget about her other problems by focusing in and being too focused almost on her pro-bending stuff because of how much she'd been affected by the events of the previous week, then you could have, or you can sort of have your cake and eat it too then, because you can jump to this plot without it feeling out of place, because the reason it's so much the focus now is because Korra has made it so much the focus. And I would say that is kind of there in the subtext of the episode. I don't think that's not the intention. She's clearly thrown herself in 100% to her bending, pro-bending career at this point. So I think it'd be easy to imply that that's what they were going for, but it's definitely not in the text. And it could be very easily with a couple of lines at any point. I mean, Chris gave some great examples of where you could do it, but honestly, you could do it anywhere. There's really, it wouldn't even need to be in a moment of comfort like that. It could literally be, you just have a couple of throwaway lines from her when they ask her about why she's not helping out the task force, and she's, and we just, the lines really heavily imply that she's maybe pushing herself on this to avoid that. I think the lack of Tenzin hurts this episode a little. He's not in it at all. And I think if he had been, that would have been another great way to, get into some of that stuff. But I will say, I think this is one of the worst examples the show ever does of this. It's usually pretty good at blending its plots, and I would say actually, so far, it's been pretty good at blending its plots. The other episodes have pretty seamlessly jumped between the many things it's juggling. This is the first time it's felt jarring, and I think probably the last. So, for what that's worth, certainly for this season, I'm less confident that's true of the other seasons. But I'm pretty sure that the season has a clear thrust going forward, and handles it reasonably well, balance wise. It is tricky, and I'm going to assume the other seasons are similar, but I think the other seasons are a little less ambitious in terms of the number of plots, or at least the number of disparate plots. But that could be my brain rewriting history rather than fact. So we'll have to see. So yeah, with that stuff in mind, and I 100% agree with your thoughts on that. That is ultimately one of the biggest problems with this episode, is how separate it feels from everything else. But then I think it is hurt by the fact that the love triangle stuff is, I don't think handled brilliantly. I think they do build to a good moment with Bolin, because your heart does break from a little bit when he sees Korra. But I think the episode isn't very good at atoning for any of its plots. I mean, it doesn't do a great job executing any of them, basically, I think. I don't think it sets them up very well. I don't think the dialogue really does a very good job of establishing where everyone's at. And I know they're all confused because they're a bunch of teenagers and they're all horny for each other or whatever. But I think it needs to be a little clearer what everyone's thinking in each scene. And I think it's really not. And it's really hard to track anyone's actual emotional journey. Then there's no conclusion. Would it not have been better for them to work their shit out and then win the match through that, rather than through Korra being the Avatar and being awesome? Because
there's so many things. Like the first episode, like it's been obviously hinted at, this sort of love triangle bullshit. But this is the first episode that's really exploring any of it. And it's exploring so much of it at once, whilst also going through the entire tournament. And it's just like you say, it doesn't atone for anything, because it doesn't resolve anything. And the resolutions we get, other than maybe Bolin and Korra, which I think sort of feels okay. But Marco and Bolin's that just women, am I right? Yeah, fuck off. That's not a resolution. You've not actually resolved anything. Like, to the point where, like, Bolin apologizes. What's Bolin apologizing for? I guess maybe getting drunk on noodles and jeopardizing the match. But I don't really think he necessarily even has something to apologize for. But because we need to wrap things up so quickly, the quickest cheat to do that is everyone says sorry. And it's like, but we're not even really exploring, I don't think, properly what people need to say sorry for and why. And it just means that, like, it's just trying to do too much. And I think if they'd have focused in on, Korra distracts herself. She doesn't tell. She doesn't. She just sees Marco with, is it Amberlin?
Asami.
Did you say? What's the name?
Asami.
She sees Marco with Asami, and she's upset by this. So she doesn't talk to anyone about it. She doesn't, she's just, we see that she's upset. She decides to try and distract herself with Bolin. She's distracting herself with Bolin because they could be genuinely friends. He tries to get close to her by talking about what happened when she challenged Thingamajig. She backs off. She maybe backs off a bit too forcefully and kind of says, no, and really upsets him because she's running away from it, because she suddenly realizes he sees it as more of a romantic thing. There's tensions between them. He gets drunk, whatever. Like, that's me thinking off the cuff, stream of consciousness. My point is, I just think you can do, if you zero in on one of these, as opposed to trying to do all of them, and resolve all of them. And look, we're obviously coming back to these, but in the context of the episode, this shit all gets resolved. Like, and I know it's not actually resolved, but what they're actually dealing with and doing in this episode gets resolved within the episode, and it's just too much to do any of it justice.
Yeah, and I think that's what's confusing is, like, if anyone's thinking, what the hell are you guys talking about? You're complaining that they've resolved it, but you're also saying they haven't resolved it. But I tell you what it is. It's that there is a resolution there. There's an attempt to resolve it, but because they want to try and keep a certain number of these threads open, the resolution feels weak and undercooked and unearned. And what they almost should have done is committed to not resolving it. I actually think, right, a better ending to this episode is they just scrape by, as they do with Korra, just about, and then they're in the room, and there is no reconciliation between Mako and Bolin. That's still tense. There's still tension between Korra and both boys. And then you get it's the 1-2 punch. It's, we've not worked out our shit, and the wolf bats just beat their opponent in 20 seconds.
Yeah, because I don't really know the advantage of them working out their shit, because we know they haven't. Like, it's obvious they haven't. So what's the point of that?
Yeah, so the script wants us to believe some of this stuff is resolved, because the script has Mako and Bolin on that platform having an exchange. The episode is trying to have its cake and eat it too. Basically, it wants some of these plot threads to last, and it also wants, because it wants them to go over multiple episodes and be an ongoing plot. But it also wants to feel like a complete episode in its own right, with a beginning, middle, and end. The problem is, the end is like it's a half measure that doesn't feel satisfying, so you might as well not do it. Because I think the ending of the episode covering the Wolfbat stuff would be more powerful if we also knew they still hadn't worked out their shit. And then you can use the next episode to actually resolve some of those storylines.
Yeah, and I think the Mako Bolin is the most egregious for me, because I don't even see anything within the episode that suggests how they know what each other did, or what Bolin didn't do anything. But we haven't, unless it happened off screen when he was carrying him, but that's not good. They've not really. We get an apology from them. We get an apology scene with them, and I'm not even sure what. Do you know what I mean? Like I said earlier, I just find it really infuriating, because I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, girl. Like, I guess ignoring his advice about not dating teammates maybe is what he's... Actually, that is probably what he's apologising for, Bolin, for going against Marco's advice and ignoring him. And now
Marco's one to fucking talk, because he's the one who came on to Korra, so... Like...
Wait, I think he... Nah, she kissed him. I think he was simply going, yeah, you're right, I do have feelings for you. But again, it just all comes down to the same thing. There's too much. There's just too much. I think concentrate on one of it and have something else sort of, bubbling. Or if you're going to do it this way, like you say, don't try and resolve it all.
Right, it's the attempt to do a half resolution, because they were just like, well, the episode needs to have some closure in of itself, but we also want to keep so much of this stuff dangling because we want to do stuff with it later. Well, no. Don't try that. Don't try that. Don't try to do both, because all you're going to get is an unsatisfying resolution that feels half-baked, because it is, and the episode won't stand up on its own, and it'll feel like it was supposed to. Whereas if they'd just gone with, a more open-ended ending, one, it would have added more impact to the cliffhanger of how they're going to get through this final, and two, it would have resolved my concerns, because I'd have watched the episode going, that's okay, I'm not supposed to get the answers now. It's not supposed to be resolved now. It's supposed to be open-ended. Which I think it is. It's just, like I said, they sort of half-cooked it. And I think it's just execution as well. The dialogue in this episode, top to bottom, is awful. It's dreadful dialogue. It's like, there's a couple of really good jokes, but every conversation any character has, with the exception of Pema talking about Tenzin, is awful. Dreadful, dreadful stuff. At one point in this episode, Chris, these words fall out of Korra's mouth, but when you're with her, you're thinking of me. All right, we're doing that, are we? Okay, thanks, episode. Nope, no, thank you. That's maybe the closest I've come to really despising the Korra character, because that felt so out of character for her. That didn't feel right at all to me. That felt all kinds of wrong. So I don't know.
It's the excuse for that is that, well, teenage love triangle bullshit makes people do crazy things, Dan.
I don't know.
No, I agree it's not enough, but that is the episode's excuse.
Right. I think the character that comes out of this smelling the best, as it were, comes out of this looking like the least problematic. I said Bolin for sure. He's such a sweetheart, and you do feel sorry for him. I do think that again. I've said it. I think I said it earlier on, but like that shot when it pans around and you see him with the flowers, like your heart sort of breaks for him.
Yeah, I guess
he's so sweet and he's trying so hard.
I didn't feel that because you knew what was coming, whereas I was sat there going, "Oh, don't let him see. Let's not do this. Don't let him see. Don't let him see. Oh, he saw. All right, fine." Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. Right. You knew that was coming, so could concentrate on the character stuff. Whereas I was like, "Oh, don't do this. Don't chuck all the plot. Not only are you doing all the archetypes of love triangle bullshit, you're doing them all in one episode." I was too busy. Like, don't pan round. Oh, they're panning round. There he is. Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course he is there.
Yeah. I think we continue to have trouble as well with the pro bending in that I just don't feel, because of how ill-defined the rules are and how much it is possible for them to just get a knockout right at the end, it has taken a lot of the tension out of the matches, because they can be, 2 down, 2 out of 3, meaning they've basically lost on points. Even if they win the next round, they've still technically lost. So all they can do is get although. That's the other thing. It was out of 3 in that third match, because they said if we get the third one, we've still lost 2-1. But in the match before that, the score was able to be 2-2. So because they had a tie break,
and they still won. Unless I didn't know if that was because that's earlier on in the tournament. Like, do you know what I mean? You can lose in the group stages of a World Cup. You can still get through on a draw.
Maybe. But then why do a tiebreak if that's the case?
Group stages. Huh?
But then why do a tiebreak? That'd be like doing penalties at the group stage.
Oh, I was talking about the round last week where they got through on a draw, or whenever it was when they got. I was talking about that one.
Oh no, they didn't get through on a draw last week. They did a knockout. I'm talking about this week when in this episode there's 2 matches. One of them it's the final one where Korra. It's the last round. Korra's the only person standing, and the only way they're going to win, because they're down 2-1. They're down 2-0, 2-0. And even if they win the round, like if Korra advances into the other team's territory and then the round ends, they'll still lose the match because it's 2-0 right now, and that would make it 2-1.
So I thought when this came up the other week, you said knockout overrules everything, sort of like boxing rules.
Yeah, it does. 100%, it does. So that's what I'm saying. So that's why Korra has to do the knockout, right? But that doesn't tally with the previous match, is what I'm saying. The one earlier in this same episode where the referee says it's 2-2 or it's a draw and they have to go to the sudden death round. What I'm saying is, if it's out of 3, which it appears to be in the final match that we see in this episode, how is there a tie in the match before it?
I don't know. I've seen 5 episodes worth of pro bending, and it's been confusing as fuck. I'm not the one to
No, but you see my point. It doesn't even make. It doesn't. I'm not even talking about episode to episode. I'm talking about within this episode, there are 2 matches where it does not make sense.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I have faith that someone in the comments will be able to give an explanation.
I don't think so on this one, because it literally, if they're telling me it's out of 3 in the final match, which they are, it can't possibly be a tie. Why do we do the sudden death thing in the previous match?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Oh, I guess could it? I get there is maybe it's that they each won one round, and then wait.
I love how you've gone from being like, nah, no one in the comments is going to be able to do it, to doing it yourself.
Well,
like,
maybe
2
no.
seconds
Let
later.
me. I've got to have a look at the footage if I want to do this, but maybe it was they won a round each, and then in the third round, no one progressed into anyone's territory. So the third round was literally a tie. Therefore, the game was a tie. But
nothing.
on that subject, right, the tiebreaker is the most dangerous thing I've ever seen. So normally you get knocked off the edge of the ring, you go in the water, right? In the tiebreak, it's a little platform in the middle of that, where if you were to fall off and not go flying, you're just going to fall down and break your neck on the actual arena. It's lucky Bolin went so hard and knocked the guy flying, so he then went into the water. Excuse me. Who commissioned this shit, though?
It's all so weird. Like, it just makes the pro bending of it all just makes such little sense.
I think when you really want to analyze it, it probably tracks to a certain degree, but it's never that clear in the moment when you're watching it. Which means it's hard to be excited about it. It's hard to feel tension watching it because the rules are not clear. What needs to happen for them to win, lose, isn't made clear. You're just supposed to sort of track the emotion of it instead. Oh, they're not doing well. Now they are. Yay. And that's not enough because I want to be able to be watching what's happening on screen and have my emotions tied to that. You know. So yeah, the pro betting stuff, not good. Not so far. So yeah, that's a shame. But I mean, what is there? Are there things to like about this episode, Chris? Were the things?
Yeah, I tell you one piece of writing I thought was brilliant, and I almost want to nominate. You know, again, this could be us nominating potentially a main character. What's the rival guy's name?
Oh, from the Wolfbats.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Did you notice who voiced him, by the way?
His voice, no.
It's Rami Malek.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah.
So get his name because I've got a very specific.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm trying to find him now. Credits, starring. Where's Rami? Where is he? The Wolfbats guy, right?
Yeah. The rival team guy. Let me see if his name's on. Because I've got the episode. They might say it. When it's
I'm looking at the wiki page for it. Additional voices. Oh, Tano. Got it.
Talame.
Tano.
So not because Tauno. So not hell no Tauno is what I'm going to say because not his attitude to Korra and Bolin, not his arrogance, none of that. The shorthand of how they made me hate him, and the reason I want him nominated for Knobhead of the Week is solely for the way he uses both hands to tell the people around him to stand up and follow him. What an arrogant piece of shit. It's so infuriating. Just that gesture, you smug prick. I think you should get Knobhead of the Week. Just Knobhead Hall of Fame. Just for that.
I like it. I'm on board. So, Spirit of Competition is the name of the episode. The person going in is Tano of the Wolfbats.
Just for specifically for the arrogant way he tells other people to move with his hands.
Wait, I'm going to write this down. For the arrogant, I'm going to quote you exactly, way he tells other people to move with his hands. Great.
Yeah. So infuriating.
He's there. So, we have an entry into the Knobhead Hall of Fame, and that is Tano from the Wolfbats, not just generally for being a villain, but for just being really obnoxious with his hand gestures. Brilliantly voiced, I would say, by Rami Malek. A really
fantastic.
compelling character. I guess this is before Rami Malek was in Mr. Robot. What is this? This is 2012.
Yeah, it has to be.
Where does Mr. Robot start? Mr. Robot starts Oh, a couple of years later, 2015. So this is obviously early-ish in Rami Malek's career. Excuse me. Yeah, decent characters though. I like the idea of them having like a rival team. And I like the arrogance of that guy. I think he's a really he's a simple character, but like he does his exact job. His job is to be immediately like, ugh, this guy, and they do that brilliantly.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, it's all done very well. I just think, what a cock.
But that's what you're meant to think, I assume.
Yeah. No. Fair play to them. Yeah, no. Like I say, it's all good stuff. I'm giving them what they want. That guy's a prick.
Yep. Tano.
How dare he? Some of them, we don't even know that all of them had finished their meal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so upsetting.
Yeah, imagine you're out with friends for a meal. One of your friends is that guy, and he's just like signals. We're all getting up, guys.
It's just without sounding.
Chris, put down your garlic bread. We're going.
Oh mate, I don't think I've ever put down garlic bread in my life. I'd be like, sort your shit out. I'm eating. I'm immediately out of the gang.
You aren't my gang of friends. My real friends would know how much I loved garlic bread.
I dropped some leftover garlic bread on the floor yesterday. I was gutted.
Did you really?
It was the cheesiest bit as well, and I accidentally knocked my plate on the floor.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm not over it.
I was gonna say, are you okay? Do you need some support? Do you need some help? Is there anything I can do?
It was tough. I mean, I ordered. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was 2 days old, and the reason I still had garlic bread was because I'd ordered so much pizza and garlic bread that actually the night we had it, we ate less than we ordered. Like, we ate less than half. There was more left over than there was eaten, which is a reflection on just how much was ordered. So, I'm on day 3 of leftover garlic bread. I think I'd have felt much worse if it was like fresh garlic bread or it was the first day's worth of leftovers. But if anything, probably doing me some good to drop that bit of garlic bread.
If you'd ordered less on the night and it had been your only garlic bread and then you dropped.
Yes, yeah. But this was backup garlic bread, so. It was all good. Look at in all seriousness, without sounding like a broken record, look at the clarity in which, the conciseness of which they did that. This is the other team. They've made them seem like a threat. They've made us dislike them. They've made us seem arrogant. We know who that character is. Look at how well they did all of that compared to the other stuff in this episode.
Yeah. Well, there's another example as well, which is the Pema conversation with Korra about Tenzin. Her talking about liking Tenzin, but Tenzin was with someone else, but she knew he was meant to be with her, so she sort of pushed through, which is obviously the worst advice for Korra in that moment. As sweet as that story is, because it worked out for them, probably not the best advice for the teenager, but sure. It's a really sweet scene though, and it tells us a lot about her relationship with Tenzin, and how they came together. And I think it's fun that the kids didn't even necessarily know that story. So yeah, I think that's very sweet and very well done.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you described it as interesting, because I just assumed it was another background story to add flavour that we weren't necessarily going to explore. But the fact that you highlighted it makes me think maybe we are going to explore it. And if we are going to explore it, then surely Toph's daughter is the only candidate for who that woman could have been that we've seen so far.
Interesting theory.
I'll lay a light prediction now that she was talking about Toph's daughter, and that's why there's so much tension between them. But I didn't think of that during the episode. It was only when you went, and they had an interesting conversation, and I was like, why could that have been interesting? Oh, maybe it's someone we will meet or have met. And then I was like, oh, well, Toph's daughter would make sense. There's shitloads of tension between them. So I'm not claiming to have thought of that during the episode. That's literally a result of the phrasing that you used.
That's interesting.
But that is, I'll lay that prediction.
I did also highlight earlier on, where is it? I told you dating a teammate was a bad idea. You're a bad idea. But I don't see you spinning theories off that one.
No, because that's amusing dialogue.
As a story point, it's one of the only other times a character that isn't one of our four interact with. So if we've talked about the four and their interactions, we've talked about.
I'm not accusing you. I'm not accusing you of giving anything away. Don't worry. Like, I'm just saying.
I know. I find it very interesting that you've decided that was anything more than just it's a moment between a character we've barely really seen and heard much from, and Korra.
Oh, I haven't necessarily. I haven't. I'm just spinning off of that moment and your phrasing, which is why I'm talking about that, because I don't want anyone to think I'm making some big grand prediction and during the episode was like, maybe. Like, we're talking about 10 seconds of thought after you use the word on here. So I want to make it clear. Unlike my love triangle bullshit prediction, which was very much like an actual prediction. This is more of maybe it's interesting because of this. That might be quite fun. The never date a teammate thing. It's just like, I know the love triangle bullshit's not going anywhere. And I imagine, Dan, it's going to be clean, concise storytelling where all the characters' emotions track consistently all the way along.
Yep.
They even, actually, in all seriousness, even to do this week's, I don't think they've done enough work to make Marco as sort of emotional. Marco as emotional as he is in this episode. Like, I know we've seen him a bit with the new girlfriend, and we've seen that maybe she's softened him up a bit, but it's quite a turn, isn't it, from how he was in episode 1, or episode 2, the first episode where we met him.
Mm-hmm.
So even to do that, even to do what they've done this week, I think they've had to undo slightly on him.
Do you think it does? I don't know, because he's still pretty grumpy with her most of the episode. He's still, it's mostly at the end. Although I do think it's funny because, like, doesn't he say to Korra the minute Mako sees them, "Look what you did"? Like, he didn't just partake in the kiss.
Yeah. True.
And also, I'd say his whole shtick at the beginning when Bolin asks him what he thinks about Korra, and he's briefly honest that he thinks Korra's great, but then sort of catches himself and is like, "No, that's a terrible idea."
Which, I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, but also, like, the dialogue again in this episode is so bad. It's like, yeah, it's just that idea of that misunderstanding. It doesn't make any sense, dialogue-wise. It just doesn't function at all. Because he's kind of going like, Bolin's like, well, what do you think about me dating Korra, me, Bolin? And he's like, oh, well, I already have a Sami. And it's like, I don't buy that you made that mistake. I don't buy that you're right, that self-absorbed you made that mistake.
And that's why, like, that, and also, but it's also too much honesty for the character, like, and that's what, and I think you're right. Maybe it's not even so much. It's just the dialogue makes it so much worse because, like, I just don't believe that character would. It's not even that I don't believe so we've got two interpretations, and I think both are fair. Your interpretation is you don't buy that the character would make that mistake. I don't buy that the character would be that honest and open, even if they did. So and fundamentally, it's the bad dialogue that is making both of us go, well, that doesn't seem to track.
Yeah, I would agree. This script definitely needed some redrafting, I think. Also, I just want to give a shout out to the narrator who opens by saying, "Love is in the air." Thanks, narrator. Thanks for giving me the heads up on what we were getting into this week.
That was my first moment of like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
I did like, and I can't remember her name again. Marco's girlfriend is called. Sorry,
Asami.
I did like Korra thanking Asami at the end, and Korra sort of going, right, I'll put some of this bullshit to the side, because actually, they've done us a favour, and her thanking her at the end was a nice moment. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, agreed. Right, I think we covered it. Should we get into the?
Well, we've not talked. Do you think one final thing? I don't know what time we'll be on. Yeah, we're all right. The fights. What do you think of the fights? Do you think we've talked before about how pro bending fights visually can feel a bit tame compared to what we've seen before. We've got a lot of fights in this episode. What did you think of the visuals and the fights themselves?
I think they've intentionally designed pro bending to have less scope on purpose. Like, a pro bending match, it seems like... So Korra tries to use water bending to hold a guy down at one point in this episode, and the referee blows the whistle. So it seems in this sort of more organized sport, what you can and can't do is regulated quite heavily to give your opponents a fair chance to defend. Because in actuality, earthbenders could just build a big wall around everyone and no one would get hit ever. So clearly pro bending has to, by its nature, have these defined rules that really limit what they're doing. But you lose a lot because you can't have that kind of creativity around the bending. So in that world, you go, okay, well, how else can we make this good? And the answer would be to give it tension through who's going to win, who's going to lose. Let's have some really clear rule sets that we can sort of follow so that we have tension in the episode, as we see what's happening. But because those aren't clear either, it all just kind of falls apart because you need one or the other. I don't mind having reduced creativity in the bending if there's tons of tension into who will win and who won't win the match. But if we're losing that, then I need to have the tension from the rule set, personally. Otherwise, it's just, pro bending, tuning out. My brain is turning off. They're either doing good, they're doing bad. I don't know, question mark. Here we go. Oh, the commentator says they're doing good. They're doing good. Okay, fine. Commentator says they're doing bad. They're doing bad. I don't need to watch. I can close my eyes and follow those.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
There's just no tension to it whatsoever. And like I said, having one or the other is fine. Having neither is broken.
Yeah, because now and again, I don't think I think with this is one of those things where I will acknowledge that I don't think I'd particularly take this on board and be too conscious of it if I was just watching this show. But now, as a result of, us talking about this every time pro bending comes up and hearing a man, go back and forth and debate with himself on what the rules are, like, I just don't, I don't see how I'm ever going to feel any jeopardy watching pro bending again. And I may have done if we weren't doing it this way because, the show makes some effort to tell you in the commentators, but as a result of this, I'm just like, well, I just don't feel, I don't know, presumably there'll be some magical solution, whether it's a tie break, whether it's a knockout, like, where's the jeopardy now?
Yep. Yeah. I agree. So it's tricky. We'll see how it plays out. We got, the final is due, so, and I'll tell you now, Chris, next week's episode is called And the Winner Is, so you can make some assumptions.
Okay, well that's good then. At least we're dealing with it.
That we're still dealing with some pro bending stuff.
Good. No, I'm pleased to hear that. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're going to hear the title at the end of this episode anyway, so I might as well say it now as part of the discussion, so you know.
Unless that refers to the masked villain and Korra going at it again, just but one episode later. That would be amazing.
Well, that'd be a great double bluff. So, very quickly, before we do the trip, I did want to point out the burping competition is one of my favorite things in the episode, and I'd forgotten about it until just now. Excuse me. Yeah, burping competition is hilarious and adorable, and very much those two.
Yeah. I'm not a burping guy, Dan, is my only thing. But that's very personal. It's very personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I find, yeah.
All right. Well, I like it. Because to save you the trouble, we'll shift topics because I don't want you to have to.
It was a cute moment between the two of them. To link it to a wider point. I don't want to offend anyone that burps. I got nothing against you burping. You do you, man. Do you? It's all good. I
mean,
can't burp
everyone
on...
burps. You mean burping like publicly and sort of?
Yeah, but I can't burp on cue is one thing. I couldn't burp now for you. Like, I just couldn't do it, which is, yeah.
Several cans of fizzy drink and then give it a go.
Oh yeah, oh mate, I could swallow some water and give you a little burp, but I can't do it on cue from nothing. Is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't whistle either.
Really?
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't know that about
that's me trying. Yeah, no, can't do it. I like that scene in general because I like the way I like that montage because I like the way there's a sense of Korra going, oh, we could be the best of friends or we could have a great time together. I think that montage of those two genuinely bonding, but you sort of being able to read it either way. Read it as maybe she could feel for him romantically, or read it as, oh, these two could become, best friends. I really liked that montage for that. I just wish it was a bit more open-ended. I just wish the characters were trying to work out what that means a bit more by the end. But that actual montage in general, not just the burping, but that actual montage of their date in general, I think is really good.
Agreed. Also, very quickly, actually, very, very quickly, because I don't want to get too much of a discussion about this, I do think it's a bit shitty that she's like, she's rejected by Mako, and that's the minute she's like, oh, I guess finally I'll say yes to Bolin. Like, I know that the thinking is, I could use a night out with a friend because I've just been rejected. I know that's what she's thinking, but because she doesn't communicate that, it just feels cruel.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Nadia's overriding thought, by the way, a little update on Nadia's opinion on this. Her most of her thoughts on this were just annoyance at Mako because it just seems like he wants two girlfriends. So
that's true. Actually, he's quite a he comes across a bit, and again, but I don't mind this because it's consistent. This notion is consistent. He comes across a bit arrogant, doesn't he? He comes across a bit. Well, no, it doesn't. Like, I need to decide what I want before. I don't know if it's that he wants two girlfriends, but it's more that he wants to decide what he wants and who he wants before anyone else can decide anything.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Right. So let's do the triv, Chris. Give me the cue for the triv.
Let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia. So. The man who attempted to greet Mako outside the pro bending arena, but trailed off after being ignored, was voiced by co-executive producer and regular director Joaquin Dos Santos in an uncredited role. Dos Santos had seen the drawing of the character standing there and made a small joke about how it seemed like he would be excited to see Mako before getting shut down. The creators have referred to the man by a popular name. Excuse me. The creators have referred to the man by a popular fan name, MOF, which is an acronym for Mako's Only Fan.
Right.
So there you go. The waterbending move that Korra executes in order to get the hat trick against the buzzard wasps is similar to the waterbending move she performs in the opening of the show. In the intro sequence. The sponsor for one of the matches is Flamio Instant Noodles, which is sort of that whole ad is sort of a weird, almost accidental reference to, obviously, first of all, Aang using old Fire Nation young person lingo, Flamio, my fellow Hotman, but also they make, they're Flamio Noodles, they're the noodliest or something, which is a slight reference to when Sokka has the cactus juice and he says cactus juice is the quenchiest. So yeah, there you go. Apparently, Bolin asking Korra out on a dinner date situation was inspired by a similarly awkward pickup line from a college friend of Michael DiMartino and Brian Kinitsko, or Michael and Mikey and Bri. So it was it's a friend of theirs
Mikey
from college.
Bri.
Yeah, their friend of theirs from college had an awkward exchange that was mildly based on. Korra and Tano's confrontation was based around one of the initial concepts of the series, where Korra would have actually beaten someone up at a restaurant. I assume in the first episode she'd have gotten herself into some sort of trouble the same way she got herself into trouble with the triple threat triads. I assume it was an early interpretation of that.
Fair play.
Could be wrong, but that's what I think.
I don't necessarily want to see Korra beat up someone in the streets though, so I'm okay that it's not that.
Yeah, they made the right choice. The way Korra kisses Mako after discussing their relationship is similar to the way Aang and Katara kiss in the Ember Island Players, and during the Harry Potter movies, Daniel Radcliffe went through 160 pairs of glasses. Korra and Mako's bickering and tension. We already covered this one. This is the same trivia from the other episode. I'm not doing that twice. Why is that in here? I should have deleted that. The worm's eye view of Bolin, Mako, and Korra gathering their heads together for a team huddle to discuss their upcoming tournament match bears similarities between Azula, Mei, Ty Lee, and Zuko doing the same thing to discuss their volleyball match in the episode of The Beach. Or I think it's called something like Kugi Ball or something, but it's volleyball. This episode initially included dialogue, in which Asami offers Korra some skincare products. 1 second. This episode's
sorry, guys. It's just Dan's allergic to those skincare products. Sorry, just give him a moment.
Yeah. This episode's going to be a nightmare to edit. I'm really not looking forward to editing any of these. It's going to take forever. The episode initially had dialogue. Asami offers Korra some skincare products and remarks on how she is looking forward to spending some girl time with Korra. That line was removed. Not 100% sure why. I guess just not really that relevant to this episode.
No, hints at a potential friendship though, which is nice. I'd like to see them become buds.
Yeah. Can you just
complicate that love triangle bullshit even more?
Yeah, why not, right? Why not? Kinitsuko and recording engineer Justin Brensfield performed Korra and Bolin's exceedingly loud and long burps. The two of them creating and recording said noises by drinking large amounts of soda, near to the point of being sick. So, well done. Good effort. During the episode's production, Michael and Bri received a note from the network admonishing them for Bolin's inebriated behaviour at the noodle restaurant. The two responded by forwarding Nickelodeon several instances from the show SpongeBob SquarePants, where the titular character engaged in very similar conduct. Ultimately, Bolin's scene was kept in the episode unchanged.
That is phenomenal. That is great work. And right, though. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the notion of, does SpongeBob get away with it because it's a bit more quirky, a bit more, but that's not what we're talking about. What they're presumably saying, the executives, is, you can't have scenes like this. Well, here are some other scenes like that. You can't just, it's not about it's not about tone. You're saying it's about the scenes. So I think that's phenomenal. Great work.
Yeah, that's great work from their part. And also, like, SpongeBob aimed it at a younger audience than Korra, too. So if they have that complaint about Korra, they would absolutely have to, have a look at SpongeBob for the same reasons. But yeah, I thought that was fun. That's all the truth, Chris. So, should we wrap this back?
I could understand a child. We read it as drunk. I could understand a child just going, though, oh God, he's eating so many noodles, he's really full and a bit delirious.
Yeah, and a bit sad because he's just been rejected.
Yeah.
100%. A child would read it that way. There's no other way a child would read it. So it's
there we go.
Fine.
That is episode 5, baby. We're nearly at the halfway mark.
I know. Well, I think we might be. This season's slightly shorter. I think. Is this season just like 11 episodes? I think that the season after
12,
this is. I think the season after this is 14, but this season seems a little shorter. Let me check. You're right. I think
it's 12. I looked it up the other day.
Yeah, 12. Okay, so yeah, we're nearly at the halfway mark, and the season after has more.
It's exciting, man. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I really enjoy this show. I really enjoy the show. This episode, notwithstanding, obviously the weakest, or the one we've complained about certainly the most thus far, I still think the show on the whole is a lot better than it is worse. But I did say, and I stand by it, in the first episode, it's not a perfect show. It's not unflawed. It has its issues for sure. But it's I would still say it comes out a lot more positive than negative for me. A lot more. This episode being an example of one of the things that doesn't work about the show. But, let's come back next week and have a chat about hopefully some stuff that does.
Yeah, for sure.
So, right. Coughing that I've edited out, hopefully, aside. Dear Lord. That's everything for this week. You can catch us in all the usual places if you've got thoughts on this episode. Maybe you love the love triangle bullshit and want to bemoan us for our dismissal of it. Maybe we've misunderstood the rules of pro bending. Well, you can contact us in a few different ways. Mail at nothingbutstatic.co.uk is the way to do it. You can also go to youtube.com/nothingbutstatic.uk and leave the comment on the video that's relevant to the episode in which you wish to speak on. And I will say, apologies to those of you who were already writing out furiously your explanation for how they ended up in a tie in the previous match. And got halfway through explaining it when I realised how that worked myself. Sorry to have wasted your time. You can also engage with the podcast in a number of other ways, such as continuing to listen, telling a friend, going over to the Patreon and giving us as little as $1 a month to get access to episodes of this podcast and Rewind reviews 1 week early. You can also support the show by going over to your podcast platform of choice and reviewing the podcast, liking, subscribing, hearting, thumbs upping, whatever podcast platform you use's own review system is. Just do that. It tells the platform that you like the content and it's more likely to share it with others. Of course, don't have to do any of that. Keep listening. That's enough. All on its own. Or tell a friend. Or do nothing. If you hate it, just switch it off right now. Click. It would be so easy to remove your phone from your pocket right now and hit stop. I dare you. A double dare you. But yeah, otherwise that's everything, I think, for this week. Unless you have... Chris's final thought? You got a final thought this week, Chris?
Look, Dan, I think if you're out there and you're involved in some love triangle bullshit, then, it can be hard. But I want you to remember this very important life lesson that this episode of Korra teaches us, which is that love triangle bullshit can be complicated. It can be difficult. It can weigh down on you. But you got to remember that despite of all of that, despite how hard it can be, you've got to try to not let it affect your pro bending team. Okay, guys? Jesus. We've got people counting on you, all right? This tournament's over in 2 days, seemingly. So, it takes 2 days to do the whole World Cup of pro bending or whatever it is. Leave your shit at the door. That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying, Chris?
What?
You're a bad idea.
That's fair.
All right, everyone. Thanks very much for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you in a week's time when we sit down to review And the Winner Is...